Welcome back to Money Meets Strategy, where we talk all things money and strategy and how to align the two. Very important topic today that ultimately will make or break your company. And that is, how do you, just at a very basic level, align your money with your strategy within your. That's the premise of this podcast, and talk about it in all sorts of different angles. But today, just want to hit the nail on the head and just get right down to it at a very basic level. How do you align the two? What do the two mean? How do you, accomplish this? How do you run your business in a way that's going to lead towards your goals? And so, first off, in order to really dissect that topic, I think it's really important to define strategy. Hear this word quite often, probably through LinkedIn, through other podcasts, through books, but just at a very basic level, removing all the gurus of the world, what is strategy, and how do you begin to develop one, right? So, simple definition. I'm getting this right off of Google. A plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim. So it's a plan, is really all it is. How do I use my limited resources of the money I have, the people I have, and the time that I have to move in a direction that accomplishes my goal, right? So at a very basic level, when we think strategy, just think, what is the plan to achieve my goal with what I have available to me today? Very basic, very, very simple there. Now, there's obviously a couple parts to that. You have to have some sort of target, some sort of goal. This might sound maybe overly simplistic, and in maybe some ways it is, but this is something that I find when we work with business owners is actually something that's quite complicated. What do I want from my business? Most people get into their business for a couple different reasons. Usually, there's some sort of financial reason or financial outcome that they're looking to have. A lot of times, there's some sort of lifestyle that they're looking to have, a certain amount of freedom that they believe running the business will have. Sometimes they just were really good at their trade or their skill that they have, and so they thought, hey, it'd be great to not have a boss and get into business, right? But what we find is the businesses that are doing the best are the ones that have a very specific target. And there does have to usually be some sort of financial component to that target. I want to take home X. I want my revenue to be Y. Whatever the case may be, having some sort of specific target certainly helps, point in a certain direction that a strategy that can then be formed by. If there's the lifestyle components in there as well, hey, I want my day to day to look like X. I want to, be home at Y time every day. I want, to not have to work 80 hours a week, whatever the case may be for the business owner. Some sort of lifestyle and financial component is usually incorporated with what the target is for a business, right? And so, very important to have that target. From there, you're designing the strategy around it. So, let's take, for example, a very simple target. We see targets all the way from very simple to something that's very complex. Some people are like, hey, I just want to make this amount every year and want to be able to pay off my house. It's super simple. That's a very strategic conversation, though, of how to get there. Maybe the goal is, hey, I want to, not have to work more than 45 hours a week. That's a very strategic goal that you have. There's going to be a lot of things that might need to be taken into account for your business in order for you to be able to achieve that in a way where your company is still profitable, where it still cash flows, you still have money in the bank that they make the next payroll, or money in the bank to make the next distribution itself and not bankrupt the company. It sounds simple. I only want to work this much, but there's a strategy that needs to be in place with your money in order to be able to get you there. The goal might be much more complicated than that. I want to get to 20 million in revenue by acquiring various companies within my industry. That's a much more complex goal, but and again, there needs to be a strategy in order to get there. So again, breaking down the strategy, very simple. It is a plan that leads to a target with the limited resources that you have. What's the plan? There's got to be a target and there's got to be a plan. And even the most simple targets still involve strategy and intentionality to be able to accomplish them. And so let's take a quick kind of example, maybe to give you a few simple steps to begin to align the money with the strategy or the target that you have so that you can get where you need to go here in 2026. So step one, when it comes to aligning money with the plan to achieve the target. I guess we kind of already talked about step one, so I'll call this step two. Step one is you got to know the target. You got to have some sort of operational knowledge of how to achieve that target. So if we take a service-based company, for example, and that company wants to double in revenue in 2026, well, there's going to need to be key hires operationally to achieve that. There's going to maybe need to be additional investments in marketing. There could be a number of considerations that need to happen there just operationally to achieve that target. But now let's talk about, okay, how do I then align the money to make sure I can do those operational to achieve the target? So step one, you really got to know where you are today. Now, you got to have good numbers, reviewing the financials. Again, this might sound overly simplistic, but this is very important. If you don't know where you are today, if you don't know where your margins are today, where your bottom line is today, the levers that you have to pull to improve or additionally invest into different initiatives to achieve that doubling in revenue goal, well, you're going to really struggle to even create the strategy. So number one step is you really have to know where you are today. You need to be reviewing what us finance people call a 3-statement model every single month. That's your income statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, ideally projected out also through the next 12 months. And you need to have the visibility to see that every single month. Then step two, I just hinted at it, to align money with strategy would be to forecast out the next 12 months. That's part of that 3-statement model I just mentioned. But you need to understand, hey, what is my P&L? What does my P&L look like over the next 12 months? As I bring in more and more revenue, I make the key hires I need to be able to service that revenue. Again, we're just talking in the example of a service company right now. If this is, say, like a trade service, as you buy certain equipment to be able to perform those services or rent that equipment, what's the better decision there? What does your P&L look like at the end of the day? Now, you can't stop there, though. You also need to project out what your balance sheet is going to look like. So when are you going to purchase those pieces of equipment? How are you going to finance them? Those type of things. And you also then need to take both of those and filter in how does my cash flow look? At the end of the day, I achieve the revenue goal. I hit the margin I know I can hit. I have the OPEX. I make the investments in the assets. What's in my bank account? Am I able to service the debt that I brought on? Am I able to, manage the cash need of the payroll that I'm going to bring on? Those type of things, right? That's why you need to be able to see that cash flow. From there, stress test it a little bit. What happens if you fall short on that revenue goal, but you still make all those investments? Is that something that you can live with? Is that something you can survive? Your business can survive? What happens if you do it faster than you think you can? What happens if it takes longer? All the different scenarios. Run those scenarios. Understand the risk profile that's on the table for the certain target that you have, and see what looks likely and most likely to happen, and how along the way can you maybe mitigate some of the worst case scenarios, some of the risk with worst case scenarios. All along the way. And then from there, as you kind of start to stack hands on, okay, here's the strategy with the money we're going to pursue. Here's what the next 12 months look like. Here's what we can do with the revenue. Start assigning the ownership of the financials out, right? Start assigning who's going to own the revenue, who's going to own the margin, bottom line, making sure the cash flow is going well, who's going to have all of that, and do we have the accountability in place to track that over time? And so that would be 3 or 4 quick steps of how do I begin to align the money with the strategy. Have the target so that you can create the plan to get to the target, and then understand where you are today, project out the next 12 months, stress test it to see what the worst, the best, the most likely case scenarios are going to be. Brainstorm the ways to mitigate the risk of the worst case scenario, and then from there assign out the ownership of the different parts of the finances of the business to make sure there's accountability to actually achieve the strategy play. Hopefully that was helpful. I'll see y'all next time.